Geek, the History Geek. I'm Steven. What if you were asked this as a trivia question or a test question? What holiday is celebrated on the 19th of June? Could you answer this question? Better yet, could you explain why it is celebrated and the history behind it? Truthfully, many Americans cannot answer any of these questions. Stay with me as we explore the origins and history behind this holiday. Time to suit up! Love that. Guess we're ready. The 19th of June is the date for the celebration of the Juneteenth holiday. This recognizes the issuing of the June 1865 General Order No. 3 by Union Major General Gordon Granger, officially ending slavery in the last part of the Confederacy, which had recently surrendered. To better understand the importance of this event, it would be a good idea to review the pertinent events of the U.S. Civil War leading up to General Order No. 3. Now, following the Union victory at Antietam, the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation was issued on September 22, 1862 by President Abraham Lincoln. The proclamation gave the Southern states in rebellion 100 days to return to the Union, or on January 1st, 1863, their slaves would be declared free. So on January 1st, when none of the Confederate states returned to the Union, the slaves were declared free. So that's it, right? The war's over? Slavery's done? It's done? Not quite. Unfortunately, since the Confederacy of the Southern States was a different country at the time, the proclamation would only have taken effect when Union troops occupied a region of the South and through military occupation freed the slaves. The move toward freedom for the slaves would take over 2 long years and a lot of bitter and bloody fighting. The North struggled through the early part of the Civil War. However, by the end of July in 1863, the tide began to slowly turn in favor of the North. In April of 1865, the end of the war was near. On the 2nd of April, the Confederate capital of Richmond fell to Union forces, and a week later, on the 9th of April, General Robert E. Lee surrendered the first of the Confederate forces, the Army of Northern Virginia. This was followed by the surrender of the CSA forces under General Johnston on April 26th, and then, on the 4th of May, the Confederate armies of Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana surrendered. 8 days later, on the 12th of May, the final battle of the Civil War was fought at Palmito, Texas. Despite winning the last battle, the Confederate forces in Texas under General Simon Bolivar Buckner knew that the war was lost, and he surrendered the final active Confederate forces, the Army of the Trans-Mississippi, located in Texas. The final overall surrender of the Confederacy was finalized on the 2nd of June, and the process of Reconstruction was just beginning. Despite the war having ended, the Union forces had yet to fully take control of the very large state of Texas. It was for that reason that Union General Granger landed in Galveston, Texas on June 19, 1865, with his 1,800 U.S. troops. Over the next few weeks, he began to inform the citizens of the state that General Lee had surrendered over 2 months before and that the war was officially over. His General Order No. 3 said the following: "The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with the proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that between employer and hired laborer." The freed slaves were told about the Emancipation Proclamation taking effect in January of 1863, and that they were now considered free men. The news was received with mixed responses of shock and, well, understandably, overwhelming joy. The celebration of freedom from slavery on June 19th would become known as Juneteenth. It would begin to be celebrated each year, and it would be an important tradition for African Americans in Texas. Many would make an annual pilgrimage back to Galveston each year. By the 1870s, some former slaves purchased 10 acres of land in Galveston, which they called Emancipation Park, to hold these yearly celebrations. Over time, the celebration would grow, and with the movement of black people to other parts of the country, it would spread. However, during the early 1900s, the celebration would begin to see a decline as blacks moved to urban centers and less emphasis was put on the celebration. Juneteenth would see a slow resurgence with the growth of the civil rights movement during the 1950s and 60s. By 1968, as a result of the People's March on Washington, many of these attendees would return home and begin to initiate celebrations in areas across the country where there had previously never had been Juneteenth celebrations. With the urging of Al Edwards, Texas would again lead the way with the celebration of Juneteenth, when legislation recognizing it as a state holiday passed the state legislature in 1979, and it was celebrated for the first time as an official state holiday in June of 1980. At the time of the creation of this video, there are currently 47 states across the country that have officially recognized this holiday. As is typical, the states often lead the way in recognizing holiday observances, and at this time, it is not yet a nationally recognized holiday. However, Texas is urging the Congress to consider legislation to change this. Juneteenth, also known as Freedom Day, Jubilee Day, and Liberation Day, is often celebrated around a good old traditional barbecue. Other foods vary by region, including things like, sweet potatoes or cooked greens, red beans and rice, a salad with red, green, and black beans. Drinks, a preference at this would be red soda water or strawberry soda, and a favorite during the summer at picnics, the good old watermelon. Depending on locations, they may have readings, oral histories, concerts, parades, or even rodeos. As Americans, it is time for us to move this often obscure holiday to a position of greater importance. It is time for each of us to reflect on the past and the ugliness of slavery and the stain it has left on our country. However, I would urge each of us, regardless of skin color, to look at the great progress we have made as a country and the many great changes that have come over time. While there is still work to be done, it is time to come together, each of us, regardless of skin color, at one table to blaze a new path to a brighter future for this country. I would encourage you to find ways to celebrate together, to share food, to share culture, and to come together as citizens of our communities and of this nation. Well, I want to end this video by encouraging you to explore even more about the history of this fascinating American holiday on your own. If you would like more information about other June holidays, check out my video covering the origins and history of Flag Day. And as always, if you like this video, please vote for more history by giving it a like, and be sure to subscribe to the channel and ring the bell for notifications for future videos. Well, until the next time when I ask the question, did you know? I am Stephen, and this is the History Geek.